Exodus. Walk out. That's Exodus is when you're coming out. That's when children of Israel was coming out of Egypt. God delivered them out of Egypt. From Genesis to Exodus. That's when you can read that. Those first. Walk up out of Exodus. My exodus, walk up out of that bondage, that all the bondage that I came from. Nobody loves me. I don't think I'm beautiful. I can't do nothing for myself. I'm dumb, I'm stupid. I can't get no good grades. I can't make no friends. Exit out of that. Walk out of that. This is my exodus. Exit out of that and be who you are designed to be. Be in the greatness. You're walking in liberty. Liberty is freedom. You're walking in liberty. So exit out of that. Exit out of that thoughts of bondage and be as our sister Lee Andrews was singing about. Free. That's what exiting is.
That's good. Any thoughts? Because I know we've played that before. Some of us have seen it. It's always something good. Any thoughts?
Talking about where you see yourself at. What have you been doing to increase His word into your life? The reason why we struggle, the reason why we go through a lot of stuff is because we are not committed to doing what He said you can do. So what have I done this week to show Him that He is my way maker, He is my peacemaker, He is my strength. Because if I'm not taking time out to interact with Him, then that's the reason why I'm still struggling. That's the reason why I'm not understanding my position and my assignment that I have in my life. So the question was, how much time have I spent with Him so it can make a difference, so He can make a difference in my life? If I'm not doing that, then that's the part which we talk about, I'm holding myself in bondage. And what that means, I'm causing my own issues, my own circumstances, my own trouble in my life. Because I'm not doing what He said He said I need to spend time with Him to get to know Him, so I know the things that He would desire me to do. That's the question.
Any thoughts? That's the only thing that's going to make a difference in our lives. that's no good. I mean, I understand it, I've done it, because I wanted to get it out of the way, but I need to put more time into everything in the time that I'm not at work, or I'm not at school, or I'm not doing whatever that I'm supposed to be doing on a normal basis. I've got to put more time into it. And I know a lot of times we keep promising ourselves that we're going to do that. The big one is the student that doesn't want to do well in school because they know they keep not putting the time in. So I asked them, well, what's the GPA? And they'll tell me a 2.5. And so my next question is, well, what happened? What's going on? Because that's not going to get you to the next level, even if you had a thought about going to the next level. And it's always some friend, it's always some buddies, it's always something that's distracting them from being able to go on and do what they keep promising themselves. I'm going to study more. I'm going to look at my books a little bit more. I'm going to go back and look over the notes that I didn't understand, or the reading that I didn't understand. And we keep promising ourselves different things. I'm going to write my proposal for my business plan. We keep promising ourselves different things that we never do. And if we don't follow up on our promises, that's all we're talking about. Our life is going to be at a standstill. And yeah, so that's what we have to really consider. We got to put more time into what we're saying that we want to become and what we want to do. Or it's nothing but just talk. And I know I'm not saying what it is, but what it is. This ministry doesn't allow you to do that. You know, even where I work at, you know, I get on their last nerve. And my comment to that, when I get on their last nerve, is you should have met S.J. Kelly Sr. then, if you think I'm tough. Because he didn't let up. Every time you passed him, which would have been every day, he's checking on you. And of course, he didn't have to check on me much because I already knew what I needed to do. I needed to cut the grass. Come on, walk with me just a little bit. We're going ahead. Had to meet you to start this. I had to cut the grass. I love you all more. I had to cut the grass, so why should he have to keep telling me to do it? I knew when it needed to be done. I knew that after 7 days it needed to be done, and it fell on the day that I was supposed to do it. So then why would he have to tell me that over and over and over and over again? So then, Lord have mercy. You guys aren't going to play fair today, are you? So then he didn't have to, although he could have acted that way with that car that I wanted to drive. Yeah. Let's see if I can play like he doesn't want to drive it. So he has to ask me every time. Which, that's what I did. That was a bad example for a good example. But, yeah, he could have done that with the things that I wanted to do. That's what I'm really saying. So, when it came around time to cut the grass, I was out there cutting the grass without him asking me. In fact, everything, that's why, for me, I'm just talking about me, my testimony, is most of the adults, I would come to my uncle's garage in Middletown and help him with his cars. A little bit of help, wasn't much, but he just wanted me around him because I was always a pretty decent human being. Well, I couldn't help but to be because that's what they required me to be, a decent human being. But they knew that I would take care of whatever they wanted me to take care of. I don't know how I got way over here, but we're going over. I would do it without them having to keep asking and going over it every single time that it needed to be done. Hey, did you get that done? Nobody should have to ask you to do what you know you're supposed to be doing. That's called responsibility. How about those? I went in pretty on that other side, I know. How about thoughts, how about questions? How about concerns? So we're finding that we don't have to be that outstanding. We started out this morning. We don't have to be that outstanding to be able to really be that outstanding. Because it's the common things, like Leandria, we were speaking about how she said how God has given her chance after chance after chance. And we all know what that means for our own lives. And so then we decided that we should also extend chances to people that are in our lives. We also are finding out that we can actually just do what we do as far as whether it's teaching, whether it's ministry, whatever it is, that we would do it in its most basic form. You know, I found out that just being basic can be extraordinary, can be outstanding. How about those? You don't have to be outstanding to be outstanding. You can just know what needs to be accomplished and just speak in those normalcies of terms and things and stuff to actually get a point across that sounds like it's really a great point. So then it's in the basics that we have to play basketball, to learn how to do layups consistently and make them, to learn how to shoot foul shots consistently and make them. I watched when Michael Jordan played, of course, coming out of North Carolina, they really work on the basics. They work on the stuff that's going to win games, like going to the free throw line and actually making the free throw. And it's in its own terms of what it's actually called, a free throw. It's free. So at least make what's free, right? Because the other stuff you got to work toward. But somebody's guarding you, and they're not going to let you have a free shot, are they? How about those? How about questions? So we come to our daily bread today. Would someone like to read that for us? The open spaces, huh?
Okay. Today is Sunday, August 20th. The lesson today is coming out of Exodus 33, verses 1 through 4, and also 7 through 11. It starts off with, the Lord would speak to Moses face to face as one speaks to a friend. The title is Finding Open Spaces. In his book, Margin, Dr. Richard Swenson writes, we must have some room to breathe. We need freedom to think and permission to heal. Our relationships are being starved to death by velocity. Our children lay wounded on the ground, run over by our high-speed good intentions. Is God now pro-exhaustion? Doesn't he lead people beside the still waters, anyone? Who plundered those wide open spaces of the past, and how can we get them back? Swenson speaks, we need some quiet, fertile land in life where we can rest in God and meet with him. Does that resonate? Seeking open spaces is something Moses lived out well. Leading a nation of stubborn and rebellious people, he often withdrew to find rest and guidance in God's presence. And in his tent of meeting, the Lord would speak to Moses face to face as one speaks to a friend. Jesus also often withdrew to lonely places and prayed. Both he and Moses realized the importance of spending time alone with the Father. We too need to build margin in our lives, some wide and open spaces spent in rest and in God's presence. Spending time with him will help us make better decisions, creating healthier margins and boundaries in our lives, so we have the bandwidth available to love him and others well. Let's seek God in open spaces today. So here are some questions to consider. Why do we need margin in your life? How will you build some space into your schedule to spend time with God? Jesus, help me to seek some quiet moments with you each day.
Somebody tell me, what is a margin? What are they speaking about? What is a margin?
It's a spacing. I actually looked it up, and it was several definitions depending on the context you want to use. It had like business related margin, which is between your net profit and, well, anyway. They had the literary definition of it, which was the spacing on the side of the page, aside from the actual writing itself. But what I took from it, I guess the common definition in that was like spacing, like a space between, is kind of what I took from it.
Can anybody show me a margin in the room right now? Anybody have an example of one?
I accuse others wouldn't stop people or something.
Okay. Anybody else? Have an example of a margin that you might have with you? Anything?
You said a margin that you may have with you?
Or an example of one?
I would say if it's somewhere apart from, it would be we're right here, and apart from our margin would probably be like if I was over there.
There's a revelation in this word, because you know what? A lot of people have pieces of paper right now and they don't know what that margin is for.
For reference.
Because I saw them looking around. They don't even know what that's for on that paper. So I'm glad we did. Because I was looking at something. Anybody know what I'm talking about?
That line going down the side of your paper.
They have no idea what it's for. Have no idea, because I saw them looking around. Yeah. And so what is that margin for? We're going to something new today, aren't we?
You can use that margin as like, so when you open your Bibles, it talks about at the beginning, the author, who wrote it, where is, the purpose of the writing, where is it wrote, where is it written at, the time it was written at. You can use it as your journal, like with your name, the location we at, church, who's all involved, the time, you can use it for that. The purpose of coming. It's like writing a whole new, it's like you can use it for another set of notes.
Yeah. Isn't that something? And every piece of paper has a margin.
Writing back.
And we have no idea what it's for. I'm glad that we found out today.
Yeah, I use it.
Do you see how in my margin what I use it for?
Kind of small, but I see you use it.
Sometimes you'll have an afterthought. Sometimes you need more space. And God is saying in this today that use your time in your marginal time instead of doing other things. Put time into Him. Because a margin is representing what's extra. And so then you can write notes in the margin. You can make sure that you know exactly what you meant by maybe putting an extra word, or my word over here is Luke 5:24. I need to know that. And so every piece of paper has a margin. That's for what we call the extra, but God is saying, can you kind of bring him into your everyday writing and everyday things that we do? Instead of making him extra or beside the point or any of those things, that we would actually incorporate him in the time that we're not, in other words, writing down on the paper on the right side of the paper. He said just include him in also just in the margin, even if it's a second thought. So then what's going to happen now is nobody in this room is going to ever forget what a margin means now and what its purpose is. That's one of those kinds of things that I would put up on the wall and then give the whole test on what's on the wall. And then they don't find that out until 3 tests later. How about thoughts? So a margin is supposed to be used also to fulfill every bit of your life. I bet that many times those margins have been empty on every notebook that we've ever had. If you go to anything that's a post-high school experience, you're going to find out how much you need that margin. Because you don't want to have to write that note all over again. You just need to say one little short thing about it. So it's a reminder. That margin is really helpful. You use those, don't you? Mm-hmm. Where'd you learn that at? AP stuff? Mm-hmm. Projection? Nice and loud so that they can hear you at home?
It was really like earlier in my school years, like back in like third grade.
But see, you're not a good example, and I'm not trying to bring anybody else into this. I'm just talking to you right now. And if we don't trip and get jealous and all that kind of stuff, we're going to be blessed. But you've always been advanced. You understand? So who knows that when we were in school, there was 6-1 and 6-2, 6A and 6B. Anybody know what I'm talking about? So the class was 6th grade, 6-1 was the ones that were kind of, how can I do this without being really abusive? 6-1 was the people who were probably going to go to Walnut Hills. Anybody know what I'm talking about?
Yes, sir.
6-2 was people who would have gone to the standard public school. Now, I didn't go to Walnut Hills, but I didn't pass the test. But I still did well at school. So that's not always true. But you understand what I just said. I remember being 6th graders when I saw that difference of the different people in class. You're in what, 11th? 12th grade coming up. Does everybody know what I just said? There reaches a point when they separate because they gotta move. And they didn't, and so then now there's this inclusion. Did you see that in 11th grade? Okay, that wasn't going on when we were in school. I don't know really what to say about that. But you've always been in a setting where you got, see, in 6-1, usually you're going to have a teacher that's even more advanced than in 6-2. Am I making any sense? So then they're going to teach you things that are going to be advanced at an earlier age, way before you got to junior high and high school and all of that. And so then these are the things that's going on in the school system, even right now, I'm sure. that there's different levels at different grades. And so then that's what happens. And so you learn that, you're saying third grade? Okay, that's really advanced, but necessary. That's what we have to know is that, so then that's why we need ministry sometimes, is because then if we have this level, I'm trying to apologize for this because it's difficult. And I'm trying to do it in a way that's respectful and honorable, all of these things, but probably the best thing to do is just truth, isn't it? Is if you get a certain teacher, you're going to get a certain level of education, even if you're in the same grade. Depends on what teacher you get. You've seen that. You've seen better teachers. You've seen some that are boring. You've seen all of that. I know all of you have. So then it gets to the point where you start to say, okay, you're getting the extra, and you did. I don't know about anybody else. I haven't gotten that far in the interview. But that's really something that you're going to need at the next level after high school. How about thoughts? Now, if you're offended, go to work. I thought I'd end with a real popular thought. That's what I would do. If there's any offense in what I just said, go to work. And bring it up. Because that's one of the things that we talked about today. So then God is saying in today that in the margin, in the part of our lives where it's not filled up, you notice that that margin isn't filled like the other side of the line, right? Use some of that time for Him. Because all of this space, and you know what happens when you have a lot of space like this in your life, right? Anybody want to help me? What usually happens?
Trouble.
I appreciate you. It's on the way. That's too much time to be doing nothing. And you can actually be writing the business proposal while you're in junior high school, while you're in grade school. What do I want to do? What do I want to create? Maybe I want to write a book. What do I want to say? We can start writing all of those things very early, but we think that that's not something that we should be doing if we're in school and all of those things. It's amazing how people have gotten a jump on life right in grade school. I think I remember seeing on Shark Tank that Mose Bowes, that kid was in grade school. His mother was helping him with all of the logistics and the business plan and all of those things. But he was in grade school when he started that. He's not now. If you pull it up on your phone, I'm sure we can tell how old he is now. But that kid was no older than you. I don't even think he was even your age. How old are you? 12. He might have been somewhere in that range. Because for me, people that aren't really tall, sometimes it's hard to tell. But no more than your age. And he created that Mose Bowes, which is a bow tie business. Shark Tank, I think it was Damien picked him up. I can't remember who picked him up. I thought it was him because he does the clothing. And if you pull it up now, this kid is on the way. I did my first party trade at 18 to a corporate business because I was trying to do something. You can do even much better than that, age-wise. I was 18. And, yeah. But I thought I was moving in the business direction. I didn't find out the business that I was doing wasn't actually going to be cucumbers and broccoli. Somebody's hearing my words. It was the business of people. So God was setting me up to understand how to be efficient and proficient in all of those things and perfect it to whatever degree. Because when you're selling to a corporate, you make sure while you have the gloves on that you are making sure that tray is looking like a picture. And why would that be? Why would I be that concerned about something that has just vegetables on it? Why would I do that? Any thoughts?
The details matter.
That's good. And I want to do business again. But if I was selling you the tray, I would do the exact same thing. Because of my integrity. I'm not going to give you less than I would give them. Or then, who is that person? How about thoughts? The margin. How about thoughts? So finding open spaces. What time frame do you have in your life that you could give to God? Because that's the real part of what all of us should be considering.
I find
Bless you.
early morning works for me.
Great.
Works really well. Kind of before everybody else gets up and stuff. I find that as a very valuable time that I use to just focus on, reading and looking over past notes and everything like that. And I find myself sometimes in those spaces, in those moments, taking notes from the notes.
Mm-hmm.
Just, you know what I mean?
Using your margin.
Just using my margin within the margin. Because I as you're doing these types of things, thoughts spawn other thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think early morning works for me if I had to give an example of finding an open space.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like my brother too. Like I'm early mornings. It's quiet. The fresh air breezing through.
Mm-hmm.
Less traffic. Even when the windows closed, you still hit traffic. Like in the daytime. I also find that when I got the time to be strolling on my phone like this, God put it in my mind like, you doing that, you can spend time with me. Put your phone down.
Or put a Bible app on there, that helps.
Yeah, even so, they had to be like, oh, a notification. What's this about? Pull it down. Nah, put it down. Pick up the Bible. Like, ain't no notification gonna come down from this world. It's gonna be a notification from God. So spend some time with it. Even if you just sit back and just listen, giving him his thoughts. Like giving him your mind. You ain't even just thinking. So he could feel download. That's discipleship. He downloads. And that time can come 3, 4, 5 in the afternoon, in the evening. Just put my phone down and give it to him.
What I noticed throughout my day, I'm a lot these days. I should be doing, but I do it anyway. But if you really prepare to hit a spot, hit a point with me in the morning, because I'm always going to do something. And what he began to show me is, if I'm really in tune with him, really in a relationship with him, he'll jot stuff in my mind more than I actually think. What I mean by that, I can go out and start my day, and somewhere in my day, God will start dropping me nuggets throughout the day. So if somebody says, how can you spend time with God or make a certain time? I see if you open up your mind to him, because he give it to you anytime he get ready. But see, you got to be in a relation where your life reflects that. And while that's happening, I could be thinking one way, and God will come and give me a thought about something He want me to know or something He want me to see. Any given time of that other hour, just say an hour. So I start. If I'm in a relationship, I already know that He's gonna drop something on me. So I can't pick a time to actually spend with Him because he do it anytime He get ready. But I have to be in that type of relationship where He would do that because He wants us to move all the time. He wants us to keep learning all the time. So I would say, get in tune with Him. Because God gives us stuff all the time. It's just whether we allow Him to see it or not. So I don't choose the time and place and I spend time with God. Like all my time is with God. All my time is focusing on who He is, what He done, and the things He did for me, or how I made me today. Because that represents my life today. So I have to look at God. I open myself in. When I wake up in the morning, I open myself up to hear from Him. When I lay down at night, I open myself up to hear from Him. So that means if I give Him my whole day, then He's going to give me something through that day that's going to advance my life. Because that's who I'm connected to. A God that keeps moving. A God that keeps identifying with me. Because I can't forget about who I belong to. Because if I remember who I belong, that means that He's going to use me whenever He get ready. I got to be willing to follow. And so that's how I live my life today. And sometimes it gets difficult, but a lot of times it don't, because if you're focusing on Him, He's going to allow you to see visions throughout your day. But are you going to take that time to stop and wait and look and pay attention to what He does? Spend that time with Him, because that's what makes the difference.
How about thoughts? The attitude of Peter being on that water is so relevant to every bit of our lives. And continually to keep our eyes on Him. And I know that's different for the youth than maybe even for the adults. And sometimes it's tough for adults. But as long as I keep my eyes on Him, I'm never going to be in a place where I'm in a deficit, where I'm going to be below. And I know that's what Demetrius is really saying, to continually keep our eyes on Him. That's what Peter didn't do, but he gives us the lesson of what that really means when you don't. Because the moment that you take your eyes off of God, you begin to sink. And so then the question is, how do I do that? How do I keep my eyes on Him all the time? By always being in this place of understanding that He's the one who has actually made you and created you, and everything you owe to Him. You know, when Leandria was singing that song, one of the things is that we begin to understand that everything that we are is because of who God is. And so then there's this recognition. And if we haven't been under that kind of thought process totally, we would consider being in that and under that kind of thought process. Because nothing would be happening in any of our lives that's especially good or anything if God wasn't in control of our lives. And so there's this constant monitoring. I don't know how really to describe how to do that. It's probably always having a thought of being grateful and thankful for what God has actually done, because the record tells us unless the vine is connected to the branches, I mean, we could just grow plants in the yard and understand that particular perspective. Unless that vine is connected, if you cut that vine off, if you dig it up, that plant is dead. Well, that's who we are. Without God in our lives, we would not be anything. The record says we can do no thing. And so if we begin to process that mentally, you know, we don't have to be great verbally to be great. But if we can process that mentally, we would stay in a place of being grateful. Every thought, I would say I was probably 6th grade when that voice really came and said, how did you catch that baseball? And I believe everyone's going to have a moment like that, where you get to a place in your life where you realize you're not doing what's being done. I don't know what that means chronologically for any certain individual, but it's going to come sooner or later in all of our lives where we realize that we're not doing what we're doing. We don't have the capabilities. But to realize who is doing what's going on in our lives, that's the recognition. And to get to that place to realize I didn't really put my pants on, I didn't put my shirt on, because without my limbs working, hurt your thumb or your finger sometime and try to actually put your shoe on and tie it. You'll find out really fast how much you need every bit of them. And of course, the record talks about the body of Christ. And so every part of the body is important. That's a whole different topic, but it's just a thought. How about thoughts? So we would find, hopefully, space in our schedules to be able to fit God in, huh? If we can. How about questions? How about thoughts? Looks like we're running really well on schedule. And we can maybe take a break to